You've described this as an intelligence failure, but a failure is something that happens accidentally.
None of the intelligence that was coming up talking about the storming of the Capitol, killing members of Congress, or killing my police officers was ever discussed at the conference calls that I was on, at least.
That doesn't seem to make sense at all.
It doesn't make sense. I'm looking at my men and women having their asses handed to them, and my first thought was, fuck it, I will take whatever discipline there is.
Once things got out of control, for 71 minutes, Pelosi refused to allow you to bring in the National Guard. Why don't we have answers?
It doesn't seem like people really want to get to the bottom of it, and it gets worse from there. I had a conference call with the leaders of all the law enforcement. It was a call I coordinated. Not one person on that call talked about any concerns for the intelligence, the attack on the Capitol that we were seeing that was out there. That's what's scary.
This sounds like a setup to me. I'm sorry, it does.
New Jersey State Police beat DC National Guard to the Capitol.
Wait, cops drove from New Jersey before the National Guard could get from the Armory on Capitol Hill to the Capitol? Why isn't this story everywhere?
I have no idea.
All right, so that was the former Capitol Police Chief, Sons, that was fired. He was fired. Well, no, he resigned after the whole Capitol riots. All right, so I want to give you guys my clear stance on January 6th. No BS. January 6th was a protest that went bad, that turned into a riot. And just like any other protest that turns into riots, there are a couple of things that could go wrong. And the thing that went wrong here with January 6th was the police in action and being unprepared for the crowds. Now, first, they knew that the crowds were coming. You want to know how I know that? Because days before January 6th occurred, they took out permits to say, hey, we're going to, do this. We're going to, have thousands of people there, and we're going to march to the Capitol and let our voices be heard. Here's a news report of that. And again, I covered this previously, so here's the news report.
And the mayor have been preparing for the crowds to arrive in the nation's capital. Demonstrators have been getting their ducks in a row with protest permits. WDVM's Lex Horace has been in touch with the National Park Service all day to find out which plans are approved. Lex, good evening. What did you find out?
Yeah, Tasmin, it is going to be a busy week in the district, that's for sure. Multiple protests have been planned and approved by the National Park Service. Some of these protests approved even just within the last hour. Now, as of this morning, there was only one demonstration that had been approved, and crews were already out setting up for the event today. A stage, lighting, and porta-johns were being set up for a March for Trump rally that will be held on Wednesday morning. And this will be on the Ellipse with a view from the South Lawn at the White House. Now, 2 more permits were approved this evening for events happening tomorrow on Tuesday. According to the permits, both of those will start their marches and rallies at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, one of those events is called the Rally to Revival, and the other one is hosted by the Silent Majority, and they say that this rally is to support First Amendment rights as a whole. Now, these will be monitored by MPD and the National Park Police.
We will certainly be in the particular areas that we've always been. We will be at the Ellipse. We will also be at Freedom Plaza. And I would yield to not discuss any of the other areas that we've talked about. We certainly partner with Metropolitan Police Department and work very closely with them in some of our geographical areas.
Now, it's according to the permit for the Silent Majority event that will end on 7 o'clock tomorrow on Tuesday, and it will pick back up on Wednesday at noon. Now, the other one, the Revival Rally, that one will not be, happening after Tuesday, but the Silent Majority will be continuing again, picking back up where it left off on Wednesday afternoon. Of course, we will have crews out there. I will be out there. We will be bringing you live coverage of these events and letting you guys know how everything unfolds from right here in the district. Live in the Georgetown studio, Lex Juarez, WDVM 25.
So now there are these events that are planned. You even heard them say marches, right? We got events, protests, and marches planned. So we know everything is happening, right? This is before January 6th. This is January 6th was that Tuesday, so this is January 6th. So now here's President Trump's tweet the day before January 6th, telling people that he's going to be at the event. Here it is. I will be speaking at Save America rally tomorrow at the Ellipse at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Arrive early. Doors open at 7. Big crowds, right? Donald Trump. That's January 5th. And even to go even further into the research, I actually found the permits. Here are the permits. Just so you guys can see. I deep dive. But here are the permits. So you have the permits for both events. One January 1st, one's January 4th, public gathering permits. So they got two permits for the events, for those two events. One President Trump's going to be speaking at, one is another. And again, these were march and protests, as you heard at the news report. Now, another interesting thing happened is that the media, like when you look at the newspaper articles right before the event, there were talks about storming the Capitol, people. Here's a clip from a newspaper article that I found back then. And here's what they say. They go into it. They say, more than 500 Capitol Police will protect the building. This is about the Capitol. But the situation could be inflamed if pro-Trump members of Congress emerge and make inflammatory speeches. Officials warn that if any protesters want to, quote, storm the Capitol, as some have pledged, they will be arrested. So they know ahead of time that people are coming to, quote, storm the Capitol. They're pledging to storm the Capitol. So this isn't a secret, right? We're not talking about a secret, right? They weren't, this wasn't like a secret plan. Like, we're going to storm the Capitol, right? This was known. Now, storming the Capitol is one thing, but you may say, okay, that's just one little article. Matter of fact, I didn't even tell you where I got that piece from, right? But that was before. So let me show you exactly what the Capitol Police knew specifically, right? Because it's really about what they knew specifically. So let's see what the Capitol Police do. So this is the Washingtonian. This article was written on January 5th, a day before the January 6th riots occurred. And in this article, it says right here, MAGA geniuses plot to take U.S. Capitol. It's there. And here is what the Capitol Police spokesman said about that in this article. Quote, a spokesman for the U.S. Capitol Police declined to comment on MAGA fans' thought experiments, but tells the Washingtonian that while we do not discuss the means, method, and specific resources used to carry out our protective responsibilities, the United States Capitol has comprehensive security plans in place, and we continually monitor and access new and emerging threats with the overall goal of keeping those within the Capitol complex safe and secure. So they call these things MAGA fans' thought experiments. They weren't concerned. They had it all covered. So you can't tell me you didn't hear about people saying we're trying to storm the Capitol. They're coming. They were asked about it in the media. There were newspaper articles. Hey, they're planning to storm the Capitol. It's all over the internet. Yeah, well, they're not going to do it. We got everything covered. We're good. And now we're supposed to believe that no one behind the scenes were talking about this? There was no intelligence? I like Tucker, but this police chief, either he's lying or he's incompetent. The newspaper reports before are telling you, hey, look at all these people, and the social media posts. And just to put a nice tight little bow on this, here is an article from NBC News right before January 6th. And let's just look at the headline to see if there was any guess that this stuff was going to happen. FBI, NYPD told Capitol Police about possible violence before riots, senior officials say. The FBI visited more than a dozen extremists before the rally last week and urged them not to travel to D.C., senior law enforcement officials said. So just to be clear, New York Police Department warns you. The FBI is telling you. Your own people are being told by the media. They're asking you, hey, you see all this stuff online. The MAGA people are saying they're going to storm the Capitol. We're not worried about it. We got plenty of officers. So everybody knows that people are coming to storm the Capitol. They take permits out. And we are to believe that this guy knew nothing about any of this. Nobody was talking about this. He should have been fired. It's like, really? Are we really supposed to believe that no one was talking about this? It seems like everybody knew except the people in charge. But just to be clear, there were something like 10,000 people marching to the Capitol on January 6th. I want you to see how many officers they had waiting for those 10,000 people. I'm going to play the clip of the crowd walking up, and I want to show you how many officers they had right before the crowd hits the Capitol. So we're gonna see that clip right now. Check this out.
At 12:53, a large crowd approached approximately 5 Capitol police officers standing at a fenced-off entrance near the Peace Monument. According to ABC News sources that day, many Capitol Police were armed only with mace and their sidearms. As the crowd pushed the barricades over, the police were quickly overwhelmed.
So you know you got thousands of people who are permitted, who the news media is saying is going to march the day before they're marching to the Capitol. You got them marching to the Capitol, and to greet them, they thousands of people who say they're going to storm the Capitol. You got 5 officers there waiting for them. Make it make sense, people. Make it make sense. And this guy, he's on Tucker saying he didn't know any of this was happening. He didn't know what was going on. He knew none of it. Play the clip again.
None of the intelligence that was coming up talking about the storming of the Capitol, killing members of Congress, or killing my police officers was ever discussed at the conference calls that I was on. I'm looking at my men and women having their asses handed to them. And my first thought was, fuck it, I will take whatever discipline there is. I had a conference call with the leaders of all the law enforcement. It was a call I coordinated. Not one person on that call talked about any concerns for the intelligence, the attack on the Capitol that we were seeing that was out there. That's what's scary. New Jersey State Police beat DC National Guard to the Capitol.
He doesn't read the newspaper. He doesn't watch the news. Like, he just stayed in his office and just waited. Oh, I'm going to work. What's going on? Like, they're planning to storm the Capitol, guy. Let's make sure that doesn't happen. Now, it even got so bad that right after January 6th, even Democrats were saying that something is fishy here. Let me let you hear it. Don't believe me. Let me let you hear for yourself.
I also heard a Democratic leader, Congressman John Clyburn, who told me that he believes that this attack was an inside job. I want to know what you make of that, and also what you think about Capitol Police officers who could be seen taking selfie with rioters. And in some videos, it looks as though there are officers who are not trying to stop that mob from getting in. Could there be a reason why the U.S. Capitol Police may have allowed rioters to breach the halls of Congress?
So, again, I'm just going to say it. I stand by my contention that January 6th, even though how horrible it was, even though people died, even though it was one of the worst possible scenes that you can ever see, this was all caused. This was a failure in the security apparatus. You got the head guy saying he didn't know nobody was coming, essentially, right? I didn't know people were coming. Didn't know people were coming. The FBI, NYPD's not even Washington, D.C. They knew. Like, think about everything I've just showed you. Permits. The news has the day before they're going to be marching to the Capitol. Either that guy's incompetent or there's something else going on here. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not justifying the people who did what they did and who committed crimes and broke stuff and stole stuff. Those people should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Those people are criminals. But to sit here and act like that there's nothing more here, that this was just some insurrection, when this thing could have been totally avoided. If you got 5 officers to stop 10,000 people, do you really think that's reasonable? Put on your reasonable person hat. Do you think that's reasonable? And I know they're coming. You want to know how unreasonable I think it is? When Black Lives Matter had the rally earlier, Black Lives Matter had a rally, I think, 6 months earlier. Let me show you what let me give you a flashback of how prepared they were for a Black Lives Matter rally that they knew were coming. Let me show you what happened there.
On June 1st,
it has been an entirely peaceful protest.
It was met by forces with helmets, riot shields, rifles, and tear gas. The authorities here were a mix of police and military. There were Secret Service, Park Police, the National Guard, Prison Special Operations, and local police from a nearby county. But can you tell which ones are the police? If it's hard to tell, it's these guys, by the way. It's because America's police have been looking more and more like troops.
Get in the hill!
So why do American police officers look like soldiers? And where did they get all these weapons?
Don't shoot! Don't shoot! This was a peaceful protest!
So now, some of you are going to call me conspiracy theorist. Some of you, I've gone right wing. I've gone full tilt for the right wing. I think I've made an interesting case that there is more here than meets the eye. When there's Black Lives Matter rally, you had the whole thing was all over the place, right? It was wall to wall police, fire, everything, everywhere, right? You couldn't walk 2 steps without seeing everybody in riot gear, right? Because they knew the Black Lives Matter people were coming. Now, people are going to say it's racism, why you had Black Lives Matter. No, because I think you have competent people who are running the show saying, hey, we got people who want to cause trouble. We have people who are known for sometimes getting out of hand. Let's make sure that don't happen here, right? Then you got another rally which says, we're coming to storm the building and take over Congress. We just need, you know what, have Larry and 4 other officers just stand there and just don't worry about it. They'll be okay. Tell me where I'm wrong in the comment section, people. Tell me where I'm wrong in the comment section. Because I want to hear it. This I want to hear. I try to read them all. Tell me. Because I think there's more to this story. And I think this guy's either lying. This guy who's Tucker's interviewing is either lying or he should never have worked in the field of public safety ever. Because this is the level of incompetence is off the freaking chart. My name is Nate the Lawyer, and I'll see you next time. Peace.